Welcome back to Keep Betting, the YouTube channel made for sports bettors, talking sports betting on a near daily basis. I'm CC. Tomorrow is opening day of college basketball, and there's a lot to talk about. I just realized I'm already on the wrong screen. There we go. Tomorrow's opening day of college basketball. A lot to talk about. We're not going to stay here any longer. Let's jump in. All right, so actually, before I start, let me just preface this by saying I just made this entire video 45 minutes long. My computer crashed. So we're going to skim through all of these fairly fast. We're going to talk about a couple games that I have a high opinion on, and I'm not going to talk too much about the teams that don't really matter. I have one bet for tomorrow, and we will talk about that. But I'm not going to talk about every single game because I am currently pissed off. This whole setup just... We're going to figure it out. We got the whole season. We're going to figure it out. All right, so getting started. UC San Diego, California. I had this total at 136, so I would lean towards the under, and I believe I had it at 11.5. So the dog and the under, I remember that was a pretty big discrepancy in the under, and that is the reason I wanted to talk about this, is understand that you don't have to bet every edge in a model or idea that you have early in the season, as there can be errors in models. And if you find value in every single under, doesn't mean you're right. It means maybe you have something wrong. You have a discrepancy. Books more often than not aren't wrong. And so college especially, there's so many variables, and that's why there's value in betting on them. So find those variables and use them to your advantage. But don't imagine that your numbers are always right and the end all be all. And that is a good point. I don't know much about UC San Diego and Cal. I know that the numbers say that they should go under, but I don't trust it enough that I'm going to bet on it. 11 to a 16 spread is enough points for me to bet typically, but not here. So that's that. Scrolling on down to the interesting games, we're going to go Belmont, Ohio. Belmont 2.5 is a complete lean for me. I almost want to take Belmont here. Seeing a 3.5 at Pinnacle is quite interesting. I think 2.5 is a really good number because at a 156 total, you're not going to push too often on a 2. It's leaning towards a high-scoring game, and I imagine that I would rather have a 2.5 and it possibly fall down to 2 than go up to a 3.5. 3.5 is a pretty tough number in college basketball, being outside of a bucket, and I think that tells all. I think that Belmont is the side, and I lean there heavily. I haven't placed a bet on Belmont, but I wouldn't be surprised if I do by morning. Kansas, Michigan State. Michigan State, I think we talked about this in the first video of the coming back series of the sleepers, that Michigan State just doesn't have a good team. If you haven't watched that video, I recommend watching that video. It's like 2 days ago. Michigan State, not a very good basketball team. Kansas has some suspensions, and that's the only reason I'm going to lay off. But I think 4 is probably a good number with Kansas. Going down, JSU versus Wichita State. Opened at 9.5. I leaned towards Jacksonville State. I wanted an 11, probably 10.5, 11 to take Jacksonville plus the points. But Wichita, it's fallen down to 7.5, saying I think 6.5 would be a good number to pick up Wichita at. But as of now, there's no opinion. Continuing down and towards my bet, which is Milwaukee versus North Dakota. I know North Dakota has a basketball team. Strange. So I would pull up the Discord and tell you my rationale behind this bet, but that is the exact moment that the video crashed last time. So I'm going to pull it up on my phone, and I'll read you my rationale sent in the Discord. I sent the ticket today at 159. We got 6.5, and I believe it is 7.5 now. Ooh, where did it go? Yeah, 7.5 now. So good line movement. That was on Bookmaker. So Milwaukee. First off, Milwaukee got the number 2 recruit in the nation, and Pat Baldwin Jr., his dad is the coach. And so they're going to be the more talented team on the floor. North Dakota lost their leading scorer, rebounder, same guy, and then their highest rated assist man. Their starting 5 is going to have a junior college player at power forward, which he does have good moves, but versus a junior college. And then they have 4 people who don't really crash the boards. They had really low rebounding numbers. On the other hand, Milwaukee brings in a 7-footer, 2 guards at 6'5", a guard at 6'4", and the 6'10" at Pat Baldwin. So they have the most talented kid on the floor. They have a 7-footer who can stop the junior college transfer, who actually did have pretty good moves. I believe he was 6'9". And I just think this is a really bad matchup for them. Low rebounding. So, I mean, if they're hitting their shots, then yes, they could keep this one close. but I don't imagine they do. I had this line at 11, so getting 6.5 was a pretty solid bet. And we are on Milwaukee tomorrow at 6.5. I would take 6.5, 7, 7.5. I probably would lay off an 8. Headed down, Pepperdine Rice. This one is one that I lean towards Rice at 3.5, but I wasn't able to get fast enough. It is at 6 now. I think at 6.5, 7, I start to lean towards Pepperdine, but 3.5 would have been a good grab for Rice. St. Thomas versus Chicago State. I don't even know where St. Thomas is. And the sad part about that statement is I still lean towards them. Chicago State cannot be trusted. You cannot bet on them. If you've seen the numbers or the stats behind how bad Chicago State is, you understand that statement. And so I think it's interesting that a team I literally have never heard of is a 5-point favorite, Chicago State. I'm going to look up on my phone because I don't trust my computer currently what St. Thomas is on KenPom. And I would assume they're probably near 350, which is dead last in the nation. They're 339th and a 5-point favorite on the road to Chicago State. That tells you how bad they are. So fade Chicago State however you want. I would probably lean towards St. Thomas there. An interesting one, La Tech versus Alabama, getting a total of almost 153. I imagine that's going to be Alabama all year, and I think that's too high of a total. I would probably lean towards the under here, but it's Alabama. They could very easily score 100 in this game. They're not going to, but the potential is there. They have all the talent to run up the score, and I don't see them stopping. Cal Irvine, New Mexico State. This is one that I would put in my leans column, I guess you could say. It's Cal Irvine plus 6. I thought 4.5 was an interesting number to open. I had New Mexico State at a 3.5. And so at 6, I think I would lean towards Cal Irvine, but I'm not yet buying. I wish you could get half Gonzaga versus Dixie State. I would bet that. I'm not going to bet 40.5 though. Continuing down, Duke versus Kentucky. I think this is going to be a really good game. I think people were putting too much weight on the fact that Kentucky only beat Miles by 1. It was a nice position. They didn't really care. This is a hard pass for me. I do lean towards Duke. I just think this number is interesting. Yeah, that's all I got there. BYU versus Cleveland State. Cleveland State brings back their entire team, and they were a good team last year. BYU is a team that I believe I discussed. No, I didn't. I talked about Nevada. BYU is a team that I'm pretty high on, but man, that's going to be a good game. I think that 13 is too many points, and I hate to say that because JK bet on BYU minus 14, but I don't know, 13.5, 14. For Cleveland State, that brings back literally their entire team. I think that it's going to be an interesting game. And I believe, actually, let's check what we had this at. My memory is well, I believe that we had it at 10.5. But that is a very weird game. Yeah, 10.5. So I think 14 is too much. I wouldn't bet on the other side, but I just think that that number's kind of scary good. And so I would lay off that. Continuing through, Alcorn State versus Washington State. This is an interesting one. I laid off. Alcorn State is awful. I thought 26 was a low number. I had this at, I believe, 33. But still, again, it's this idea that I don't believe that my numbers are good enough yet to be betting games like this. And also, what is the motivation to beat a team by 26? I don't know. And so it's a 2 o'clock game on a Tuesday. It was a tough layoff. This was probably my second highest graded lean. Belmont being first. I really like that Belmont spot, and I wouldn't be surprised if I'm on it. But I'm going to lay off here. Washington State minus 26 I think is a really good bet. Yeah, to the next. Wagner is a team that I bet on to win their conference. Facing Hartford at home, 3.5 seems like a blessing. You get a 3 here. I lean towards Wagner, but I think Hartford is a really good matchup, and I did not bet on it. I kind of want to see them lose so that they get undervalued a little bit. I don't think that they do, but this looks like there was an error here. George Mason 3, I thought was a good bet. Stony Brook cannot compete. UAB should beat the brakes off NC Asheville. There will not be, like, I'm a UAB alumni. I have my plaque up there, or whatever it is, certificate up there. And I'm just going to go ahead and let you know, home court does not matter in this game at all. 16.5, I just don't see motivation to keep pounding against this team. they easily could. They have a team that should win their conference this year. So 16.5 is a good number. I think that they win by probably 19, but again, I just can't put money on that, knowing that they're going to let off the brakes at some point. Maybe a first half bet. I'm not too worried about it. Mississippi Valley State minus plus 42.5 for St. John's. And insane enough, St. John's will cover in this game. I will not be betting this, but they will cover. Minus 42.5. Mississippi Valley State continues to lose by 50 plus every single time they see a basketball court. It's quite impressive. And so, yeah. Scrolling down, I think that's basically it. There are a couple teams we can talk about real quick. Teams that I think are going to be really good this year. And actually, let's pull up Bartorvik. Okay, so a couple teams we're going to talk about. Grand Canyon being the first. Grand Canyon got a couple big transfers in. And in Holland Woods, I actually didn't realize that they got Holland Woods. They got a couple players from Arizona State and Blackshear. They've got a couple good transfers in, and I think that they're going to have a good team. They're only projected to win by 9 to Grambling State, and I hope that this idea continues, that they're not a good team. 2-point dog to Pepperdine. 25 to Mississippi Valley State. They will lose by 40 plus, as I was saying. This is interesting. I think that this is going to be a really good team. They have them losing by 10 to Nevada. I think it's going to be a really good team full of transfers. Grand Canyon always knows how to piece it together, and I think that they will do the same here. Next, we have a list of these. Let me pull it up. So the next team that I want to discuss is one that maybe I'm crazy. Hawaii. I think that Hawaii is going to be a much better team than people are giving them. Strictly because of this right here. 6'7", 7 foot, 6'9", 6'6", 6'6". They are huge. And I mean, it's not like they're playing anybody who has any skill basis at all. They have 2, 3, almost 4 double-digit scores. Crash the boards a decent amount. I mean, you have a 7-footer, it's not hard to crash the boards. And they don't play teams that are good enough to neglect height, because if you have a 7-footer facing Northeast Colorado, I'm taking my chances. For Illinois, Chicago, I'm taking my chances. In most situations, I think that these are perfectly fine, because I mean, you're not talking about they're bad basketball players. These are double-digit scorers, high rebound, high leverage guys, tall, all seniors. This is just a squad, especially if they're at home. You take the biggest home court advantage in the nation and flying to Hawaii to play a basketball game, and you give me 7-footers versus decent opponents, or not even decent. I mean, I wouldn't call 247 ranked. That's in a neutral court, but let's see, so Riverside, 4-point dog to Riverside at home. Riverside's a really good team. I can't believe that they're getting 4 here, because then they're saying that UC Davis at home, who is not a good team, is only a 4-point. So I think that their mind just isn't made on this Hawaii team, projected 205th, and it's very similar in KenPom. This one caught my eye as maybe just people don't really understand this Hawaii team. I didn't really get the notion of they're just putting different ceilings on these teams. So you're going to play a really good team in Santa Clara and be a 10-point dog, but then you're going to play a technically ranked better team. I get that it's an away team, but you understand what I'm getting at. You're saying that they're going to keep up with a good team at home, and then they're going to barely beat a bad team. And this has been consistent through basically everything I've seen. Example, I saw that I believe them to win conference was plus 700, second best odds in their conference. Yet they were projected to be, I think, 2 games over 500 in that conference, which just makes absolutely no sense. And so this is a team that I am going to look at and hopefully bet at home a good bit. And then 2 more we're going to discuss. Wright State, another good. I think the Horizon League is really good overall this year. So one thing that worries me about them is I believe Wright State gets beaten by Milwaukee. So the next team we're going to talk about is Wright State. I think that you're going to be able to bet on them a good bit. Wright State, that's my squad. They have a whole bunch of really good basketball players. They also, if you know anything about statistics that I really love, like way much higher than I probably should, it's rebounding, offensive rebounding in particular. Getting second chance buckets is such a huge thing. And as you can tell, 7.2, 7.6, 6, and 4 double-digit scores, they do that. And so you're looking at a team that just does everything right. They get 20 more shots per game than the team that they're playing against. I think that Milwaukee is a really good fit against Wright State, and they probably win this conference. But I think Wright State is one that we'll be betting against all year. Okay, I'm not going to go into much of a tangent. We're going to go back to tomorrow. Okay, so that's all I have. We have an official play on Milwaukee. No. Okay, so that's all I have. We have an official play on Milwaukee -6.5. I lean heavily towards Belmont -2.5. George Mason -3. Ooh, there's a couple I'm skipping. I don't know. If you watch the video, you can find out. If you didn't and you try to skip to the end to figure out the play, you know the play. It's Milwaukee -6.5, but you don't know the heavy lanes. So that's all I got for you. Best of luck in the opening day of college basketball. Be sure to subscribe if you like these kind of videos. I'll be making them hopefully every day. We're going to go like every other-ish day. But we'll have content out on a near-daily basis about college basketball and everything sports betting. So be sure to subscribe, like this video if you enjoyed the content made, and let's make some money.